Likkutei Dvarim, page Aleph, bottom of the first column. But then he asked the question. It says in Shema that every day Torah mitzvahs have to be new. So he says, how is that possible for Torah mitzvahs to be new every day when it's 3,500 years old? So he says, the ultimate purpose of the neshama's descent is to go up higher than it was before. And he explains, even angels were created in the 7 days of creation, whether it's Monday or Thursday. There are two different opinions in the Medrash. But the bottom line is, neshamas come from the level of machshava. Like we see, who did Hashem decide to create the world with the neshamas of tzaddikim? That refers to every single Jew. And then he started explaining that the neshama is tahirahi, ata veratza yatzarta nefachta bi, v'ata mishamra b'kirbi. So he says all neshamas originate in the level of tahirahi, which is the level of atzilus. Then it comes down into the world, and then the guarding is that the neshama should stay in the body and not leave. And the last thing we learned is the difference between haidah, submission, and bracha. Bracheni, like he said, Rabbi Yishmael was told by Hashem said to Rabbi Yishmael Kohen Gadol, Bracheni b'ni, Bracheni, bless me. But what does that mean? How can we bless Hashem? Like we said, bracha means you're missing something, and I give you a bracha to get it. But if you have everything, what am I giving you a bracha for? So the answer is, Baracheni means to bring it down, in order to reveal Elokus down into the world, like we say, min ha'elam ad ha'elam. How do we bring it down? Through Torah mitzvahs. Okay? Okay, so we have 2, 4, 6, 7 lines in the end of the first column. So therefore he says, in Metchila Tzarchi is V'yahafta. First there has to be a level of V'yahafta. Shaydei Zachagach B'shmanesei. Brachas v'amshachas baruch ato Hashem mipnei shebein b'chinas heidah leb'chinas bracha is the level of ahava. From meidem anachnu loch that we say at the beginning in Vayivarach David to the level of Shmanesrei, which is bracha, there has to be v'yahafta in the middle. In other words, in order to come from heidah, submission, to bringing down, there has to be the level of v'yahafta. Okay, skip the parentheses. And that's it. Okay, next column, base. In order to come to the level of V'yahafta, how can a person come to love Hashem? By loving Hashem, he said before, we bring down, through the 18, 19 brachas of Shemon Esrei, we bring godliness down into the world. But how do you get to this level of V'yahafta? So we can learn this through the meditation into Shema Yisrael and Baruch Shem. Pirush, Kine, what's the meditation to Shema V'ayim Shemaya? Hine, Abriyo Yesh Miyayin. Bria, creation is something from nothing. Pirush, Kmeshikos, Baruch Shem Kveid Malchus Leilam Voed. Right? Blessed is the name of Hashem's kingdom. Leilam Voed, that's simply what it means. He says, Shebachin is Malchusei. That the level of Malchus, Masha Nikra Melech Aleihem, that Hashem is called King, Eina B'chinas Atzmis, which is not the level of the essence of Hashem. It's only the revelation of Malchus, which is Dibur, which is a very minimal revelation of Hashem. It says, with this level of Malchus is what gives life to everything. And then your dictatorship, which is even lower than the level of Malchus, that he controls them against the will, and not for the benefit of the people. In governments, you have kingdom and dictatorship. Kingdom, like we say in davening, umalchusei beratzin kiblu aleim. You have to willingly accept the king. If you don't willingly accept the king, that's called a dictatorship. And dictatorship is not for the benefit of the people. Because if it would be the benefit of the people, you'd allow the people to pick you or not. So he says, we say in davening in Asher, Malchuscha, Malchus kol olamim, umemshaltecha, Moshel means a dictatorship. So he says, Moshel is even lower than Malchus. Vuchitzeni is Bechinas HaMalchus. Hu b'chol der v'der is in every generation. We say it like this. Malchuscha, Malchus kol olamim. Okay? Memshaltecha, dictatorship of Hashem, b'chol der v'der. What does it mean? That ish yesh deir shayu rishem k'mei der amabel shlei kibul ol Malchus beratzim. The dirt of the Shoyim don't accept Hashem willingly. Hashem controls them because basically dictatorship. Afal PK, nevertheless. So now the question is like this. I understand people that accept the king. Okay, let's go like this. The highest of the worlds is the level of Malchus. Malchus kol olamim. Malchus is Dibur, creation. Okay. So now the point is like this. I understand if I willingly accept the king, so I'm a keli for him. Because I accepted him, I submit myself to him. I'm a keli for it. If he dictatorship, so I'm not a keli for it. So how does he control me? So the answer is, that's why it says, he says, it comes from the external generation. So in other words, the world which is bottled to Hashem gets their chayis from Malchus. If you're not bottled to Hashem, Mabul, Haflaga, whatever, most generations, then you're getting Memshaltecha, which is even a lower level of chayis than Malchus.
But it comes from Malchus?
Yes. And he says, Vine kmer kol elam esayenim v'tacht kol elam esayenim Gan Eden tacht shutainig nifl me'elam hazeh. He says like this: the higher world, even the lower level of Gan Eden, not the higher level of Gan Eden, the lower level of Gan Eden is a tremendous enjoyment of godliness. Like the Gemara says, motiv de l'dain. It says in the Barach, it's worth being punished in Gehenim to go to Gan Eden. That means all the torture of Gehenim is worth to go to Gan Eden. The Gan Eden al v'yesh ed aliyas lein ketz. Kulam nisavu rab bechinas malchus yisbarach. So the Alter Rebbe is saying that the highest worlds come from Malchus. What do we say? Malchuscha, Malchus, kol elamim. All worlds. Highest worlds to the lower worlds are all from Malchus, which is only a revelation of Hashem's speech, which is far from the level of Hashem himself. And therefore Bria is called Yesh Mi'ayin. Why? Because the creation of the existence of creations from a level Shuka'ayin ve'efes, which is nothing. This is very common in Chassidus. There's two reasons why we call it Yesh Mi'ayin. One is because from our perception, like we learned yesterday, we exist. Hashem, we got to think about if he exists or not. That's one explanation. Here now, the Rebbe is saying a second explanation in Yesh Mi'ayin. Because the worlds come from a level of godliness which is really nothing. It's only a level of Malchus. It's only one word compared to the power of speech, compared to the power of thought, compared to Midas God. So another interpretation of why we call the worlds Yesh Mi'ayin, because it taka comes from a slight revelation of Hashem, that compared to Hashem is taka ayin. So he says, what's the difference of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? When a person meditates that all the worlds, that means the physical universe, plus Bria, Atzilas, Bria, Yetzira, Siya, Elim, higher than Atzilas, whatever, is all one spit, so to speak, in the ocean of godliness. So then we understand how nothing world is.
What was the first shot of
Yesh Mi'ayin, because we don't understand it. So in our world, we call it Ayin. So Bechinas Sheka'an, Rakshe Bechinas Ha'arev, Min Mani Yisbarich, which is the level of Malchusa. And not only that, V'gam Zeis, even this, the existence of the world is a very limited level of Hashem. And then he says, even that level doesn't internalize. It's Makif. V'gam Zeis. Ein mislabesh b'seichim, though this level of godliness doesn't come to the world, rak emed alei milmailek, it says in the Maimer Kmo shel HaMelech, similar to the concept of a king, asher shmei nikra leim. Like we learned many times, how does a king control the country? The king doesn't go out to the country to control it. The king sits in the palace, and he gives orders. So how do the orders go? The king said, it's all his name. The king himself is remote from the nation. He sits in the palace. The same thing with Elukus. The level of Malchus, which itself is very, very limited. But that level that gives life to the world is also very external. He says, Avo kol zeh, himitzad seder ishtaushlis v'sav v'selim. This level is all from the highest, from the highest levels. But not this world. This world is better than all of that. That's all as far as the higher worlds are concerned. A person can bring down the essence of God. With the Rebbe once said, with one, he overheard the way the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe's Rebbetzin was saying to some, mine says, meaning my husband says. And the Rebbe heard it and he said, look at this. With one mitzvah, the Eibishter becomes mine. One mitzvah, the Eibishter becomes mine. So the Rebbe says, all the higher world, Atzilas, Bri, Tzias, Gan Eden, Elyon, Gan Eden, all of that is array, ayin, nothing. Even that's makif. A Jew down here does a mitzvah. They connect to the essence of Hashem internally. Therefore, and this is his bainus, by the way, of Shema Yisrael, that we come to V'ahavta. Because remember, the Alter Rebbe asked the question, how could we say that everyday mitzvahs are brand new if it's 3,500 years old? When you realize what you accomplish when you do a mitzvah, think every day it's brand new. Another thing he says you should realize. Gan Eden tachten Ardiner, Gan Eden Elyon, Kemishpat Aroi, Lefisha, Bechinas Mamala. He says like this. Even another thing you have to realize. Even to go to Gan Eden, there's a process. You need Kafakela, then you need Gehenim, then you need Nahar Gan Eden, the lower Gan Eden, then you have Nar Dinur, which is obviously not physical. It's a fiery river that you have to travel to go from the lower Gan Eden to the higher Gan Eden. Nahar Dinur, you have to travel in Nahar Dinur, it says. Medrash, Zohar. So, over there in Olam Haba, there's you can't just jump up to Gan Eden or Elyon. You have to first go through Gehenim, and then you need this and that, and then finally come. He says, Avo Beilam Hazeh, Yochel Ishtanis Min HaKotzel HaKotzim Miyad Kerega. You can instantaneously go from the lowest level to the highest level. Where do we see this in halacha? To the din. A person says to a woman, you're mekudeshes to me on the condition I'm a tzaddik gomor. So the Gemara says, afilu rasha gomor, even if he's a complete rasha, the Gemara says safik mekudeshes. Why? Shame hirer tshuva. Maybe he did tshuva in 1 second. A guy comes over to a woman and he says, Ayat mekudeshesli, Amenashani tzaddik gomer. On the condition I'm a tzaddik gomer. Not Stam Tzaddik. Tzaddik Gomer. So the din is, it's a Safek Kedusha. Why? Maybe he did tshuva. 10 seconds ago, the guy was a Rasha. It's Safek. Why? Maybe he did tshuva. That means he became a Tzaddik Gomer instantaneously from being a Rashi Gomer. That can only be done in this world. In Olam Haba, it doesn't happen like that. You can't instantaneously go from Gehenim to Gan Eden Elyon. There's a process. You have to go through paperwork, permits, city, could take 100 years.
Why is he mentioning this?
Huh?
Why is he mentioning this contrast?
Because he's explaining why the neshama comes into the world. Why does the neshama come into the world if it comes from a level of tahiri? So he says, only in this world can you accomplish instantaneous connection to the essence of Hashem internally. And he says, so how could that be instantaneously transformed from Rasha to Tzaddik? Well, like we learned in the other Maimon. Only in this world can you do tshuva. You can't do tshuva in Gan Eden. Why? Because this world has a level of saving. Remember that we learned just recently in the other Maimon. Olam Haba, everything is organized. Everything's identified clearly. Once it's a boy, it's not a girl. Like it says, you daven after 40 days of conception. You daven for a boy, it's a wasted tefillah because it is what it is. You're not going to change it. But in Olam Hazeh, it's Seviv, it's Makif, and therefore there's no set entities yet. So you could change it. Mitamza, and therefore Chazal say, Yaf Shachas B'tshuva Maisim Tevim B'Olam Hazeh, Mereiv Kel, Pirish L'mayla Me'olam Haba, Hanika Kel. What does it say? The Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, Yaf Shachas B'tshuva Maisim Tevim, Mikol Chaya Olam Haba. Yeah? It should say Mechaya Olam Haba. What do you call Chaya Olam Haba? Kol Chaya Olam Haba is a level of Reiv Koil, which is even higher than Olam Haba. And therefore, when you meditate like this, or come to V'ahavta B'chol Nafshcha B'Mesiras Nefesh, and then you'll have Mesiras Nefesh, Le Mesiras Haguf Bilvad. Not only actually dying on Kiddush Hashem, but Mesiras Nefesh means giving over your Nefesh. L'cheira, Mesiras Nefesh, if you're talking about dying for Hashem, should say Mesiras Haguf. What does Mesiras Nefesh? Mesiras Nefesh means taki giving over your Nefesh.
Living is even higher.
Huh?
Living at Kiddush Hashem
Correct.
is even higher.
Correct. That's why that was Nadav and Avihu's sin. Nadav and Avihu, instead of realizing you need to be down here because you can reach a greater level of godliness doing Torah mitzvahs down here, that was their mistake. They thought I can ultimately reach Torah mitzvahs by leaving the body. That was their Aveda. What does Anechi mean? Not Hashem mitzavcha. Anechi mitzavcha, meaning Anechi atzmosi yizbarich. Mitzavcha commands you, but it also means it's kashrus. It's the level of binding, not only from the level of kved malchusi yizbarich hayem davka v'leil machu b'elam haba she'ein rakal kabos chorah. So he says, what happens? A Jew needs to realize in Shema, like we say in Shema, Asher Nechi Mitzavcha Hayim. How is it possible to feel Hayim if it's 3,500 years old when you realize it's a Nechi? A Nechi is above time and place. So when you realize a Nechi Mitzavcha, then it's Hayim because there's no time and place by a Nechi. And then when you meditate like this every day, why? Because in this world, and this is a remarkable thing of Yiddishkeit and Tshuva, in this world, you can undo the past with the present. How can you undo the past if it's past? The answer is, in this world, past is not past, and present and future is not future. Tshuva is so great, it touches anechi.
It's higher than both.
Higher than both. It is what it is. You can't change anything. Therefore, the mitzvahs are called the 248 limbs. What is the purpose of a limb? The purpose of a limb is just like a limb has a vein from the brain, that the will of moving it comes from the brain. And what is the la'ava? In other words, now the Rebbe is alluding to another question. We say in Shema, V'yohavtas Hashem Elokecha. Why isn't that redundant? It should say V'yohavtas Hashem. V'yohavtas Hashem, love Hashem. Why does it say V'yohavtas Hashem Elokecha? The same thing, Anechi Hashem Elokecha. Why didn't it say Anechi Hashem? We say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu. So he says, what is the mitzvah v'yahavta? Through this beingness in Shema Yisrael, you come to a havta, that havaya, higher than time, higher than world, becomes a lakacha, becomes internalized as your existence, as your koyach and chayis, elokim. So what does a Jew accomplish by meditating in Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? He realizes that v'yahavta, through loving Hashem, you get to the level of Hashem becomes Elokecha. How is that possible? Because mitzvahs come from the level of Anechi, Ata, and then it becomes Elokecha. It's above time and place. You have to live Hashem Elokecha, meaning Gili Elokus B'shnei Chalali Libcha, that it becomes Levavecha. What do we say? V'aftas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, not b'chol lipcha. Your heart is lipcha. So, like the Gemara says, b'shnei yitzarecha b'chol asman meridas. What is? How does he get it? By having the bitterness. Shemashuk b'nyani elam, he's so sunken into the pleasures of the world. B'richuk me'Hashem. And also chola, yimani the nefesh shul kiss. Simcha shel mitzvah, like it says, Yismach Yisrael ba'esav. The Jews rejoice by doing mitzvahs. Shenislab shabasiya, and like it says in Tanya say Perak Lamed Beis. V'chol sheteham meridus Yosef. And the more bitter a person is from his distance of Hashem, from not feeling Hashem, as yachakach yisna simcha me'agili earns of sheidim mitzvahs. In other words, in order to really appreciate a mitzvah, it's like the expression from rags to riches. When you realize it's coming from rags, then you appreciate the riches more than if you're born with a silver spoon. Meaning, when a person realizes how far they are away from Hashem, that even Eilam Esoyenim is only ayin, only a ray, yeah? And then the person realizes what they accomplished with a mitzvah, so the simcha is much greater. When you don't have it and then you get it, the simcha is much greater than when you have it. L'mashal, a person who, let's say, Chas v'Shalom, didn't have children for a long time, and then they have a child, the simcha, every person, I mean, you have a simcha, I mean, you have a child with simcha, yeah? But when you didn't have it for a long, 10 years or so, and then you have a baby, the simcha is much more than a person who has kids right away. That doesn't mean you don't have simcha. But from the realization of how far we are away from Hashem, that causes more simcha.
Remember, that shouldn't get us depressed.
No, not at all. But that's why Golus is not a depressed time. Because Golus, we realize what we accomplish. So even though when I do a mitzvah, I don't feel this, we said, when you do a mitzvah, you feel the way the essence of Hashem is coming down. I don't feel it. Lost it yagilu. That's what the pasuk says. Zerei tzedakos. When you plant tzedakos, matzmiach yeshuos. What happens? It grows salvations, which is shin ayin heid nehedin. It's like if a person knows in their trust fund that they can't touch yet. They have billions of dollars. They don't see it. They can't touch it. They can't get it. But the fact that I have it, and one day I will get it, is a tremendous simcha. Okay? So the Pearl, the Rebbe is saying like this. What's supposed to be, his baininess in Shema creates a person's excitement of doing a mitzvah that you do a mitzvah, you connect to the essence. So he says in Gimel, because when he says Yeshuas, the root is Vayisha, Sha'ah, which is the Shin Ayin Hey Nehedin, 375 rays. Huh?
We never speak about these 375. Let's do that.
Yeah, now today it speaks about it. Shai Olam is, yeah, this all this.
That's 310.
I understand, but there are different levels. The Shai Olam is the Shin Ayin Hey. Okay, I says, this is the way it's supposed to be. A person is supposed to meditate and have great simcha by realizing what we accomplished. But the truth is, it's not like that. And the bitterness is not from lacking elokus. The bitterness is that I can't eat steak during the 9 days. That's the problem. What? You can make a siyum, okay. But if the bitterness, instead of being from elokus, comes from worldly things, lacking children, panos, or whatever health, and what is the simcha of the Jew? When they have an abundance of gashmias, that's the simcha. That's not the way it's supposed to be, though. So he says that's the level of golus. That the nefesh or the kiss is so much in golus, it doesn't even feel what it's lacking. In simple English, the person is so sick, they don't even realize they're sick. That's the worst thing. If you know you're sick, like they say, that's a halbatzara. That's half a problem. When you're very sick and you don't realize you're sick, that's a killer. That's the golus karachol lefanei geizah. And that's what the pasuk says. Tziyin b'mishpat tipadeh v'shavel b'tzedakah. That means there is poida means it needs to be redeemed. Okay? Yes? Shaveha means it's returnees, but shavel also means it's captives. Right? So it's like this. Hazak siv sim b'mishpat tipada. Loshen simen ana simane. I'm only a mark, meaning Hainu b'chinas pnimis halev, which refers to the pnimis halev. V'ava tivis v'ava pnimis hamasuteres b'lev ish Yisrael. That this refers to the nefesh or the kiss, which is completely in galus. It doesn't even feel where it comes from. There's a famous mashal they bring down. There's a spaceship that's going up to Psastara, it's 1,000,000 light years away. Okay? And it's going to take a few lifetimes to get there. So what happens? So they have to, in order to get there, they have to reproduce, because people are not going to live on the spaceship that long. So they bring in men and women that they should reproduce, and then they should have kids, and they should have kids, and they should have kids, until they finally get to that destination. So the first people, they're on Earth. Then they have kids on the spaceship, and they say to the kids, you should know, we are on Earth, there's a planet Earth, and we were there, and they describe it. Then the next generation, the kids, when the kids are transforming, giving over earth to them, they say, you know, we heard from our parents there was something called earth. And then the next generation, we heard from heard from heard. Okay? So it says, that's, by the way, that's the difference between the Chassidic approach and the not Chassidic approach. The non-Chassidic approach gets depressed. Why do they get depressed? It's a year further from Matan Torah. It's another year from the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Look how bad it is. It's another year further away from Matan Torah, further away from the Golah, from the destruction. That's one way of looking at life. Another way of looking at life is, it's a year closer to Mashiach. So why are you sad that there's another year from the destruction of Beis HaMikdash? Tisha B'Av is a year closer to Mashiach. So why are you looking at negativity? At the past, look at the future. The Rebbe, when he was a kid, so we brought down in this, but the Rebbe was, when he was a kid, used to climb trees higher than the other kids. So he once asked the Rebbe, how do you do it? So the Rebbe said, when I climb a tree, I only look up, I don't look down. Everybody else looks down, they get scared. I look up.